preschools, right? As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic was not only question myself, why did you choose to do with young children? Why early childhood education? Why is there a PhD even for early childhood education? You only need to know ABCs and 1, 2, 3s to be able to teach children, right? So why do you need to be wasting your time studying a PhD to be able to teach children? But many of this, in many of these instances, we have to know that teaching young children, it requires a lot of theoretical background. That as we know, early childhood education, we have to know child development practices. And if we do not have that, then something will be very wrong, right? So back to this topic, for young children in particular, after the COVID-19 pandemic, okay, a lot of these activities where social interaction, play, and sensory experiences suddenly shifted to isolation and digital learning environments. So this created a big impact to our young preschoolers who are still developing, who are still growing in many of their developmental areas. Right. So this study would be a qualitative case study on the pandemic natives who grew up during the pandemic era, whose developmental aspects were missing a little bit. There were gaps, developmental gaps, okay, that were missing in their development and learning. Something that is generally very sensorial, very collaborative, and very play-based. As Dr. Saxena has shared just now previously, she is also from the early childhood education, so I'm proud to actually have some colleagues who are in the same field with me today. So I don't feel alone in this field, because this is not a field that many people actually know about, okay, especially in early childhood education. Okay, in STEM, a lot of women, they really recommend STEM, but not really in early childhood education. So for the audience here, if your children were to say, oh, I would like to be a teacher, and who will you be teaching? Will you be teaching university students? Then the parents will be very proud to say, yes, you should be teaching university students. But what if you are teaching the youngest babies, the youngest toddlers, and also the preschoolers? Would you say, yes, you should go and try, because those are our budding scholars tomorrow for each of our nations in the world, right? So this is why we have to be aware of the importance, especially of early childhood education. Okay? Even if I do not bring across the points of this research to all of you, I hope to bring some awareness to you about this early childhood education, which everyone should know, because I believe some of us have children ourselves, and these children are also those in those pandemic generation or pandemic natives who had experienced, okay, this isolation during the pandemic. So we have to be really careful about the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic towards their development. Okay, so that was the pre-pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, when the pandemic struck, it suddenly became a digitalized learning for our very young children. And they became isolated in their own homes, especially for the disadvantaged children. What happened to their learning? Okay, were the parents able, okay, to actually teach them, okay, online? Or were they actually had to depend on their teachers, okay, who had to provide online learning environments for these children, right? So this is about the disrupted preschool ecosystem, because